Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib spoke with Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve, yesterday, and she brought up something that apparently he's a little uncomfortable talking about: egregious executive compensation, corporate profiteering, and how those things impact inflation. Let's take a look. I found this very both satisfying hearing her bring it up over and over, and unsatisfying with his non-response.
For being here. You have a lot of economic, projections, economic projections, various data, various reports that are coming out. How much, and you've studied inflation, right? I mean, obviously it's your number one priority right now. How much is inflation impacted by these three things: corporate profiteering, egregious executive pay, and the use of stock buybacks?
So I don't have numbers, but I would say in the case of executive pay and in the case of share repurchases, I can't think of how it would affect inflation.
Really? Because I can. And I'm not the head of the Federal Reserve. I can't imagine how buying back my own stock. I'm not even gonna go ahead.
Executive pay, that would be very small in terms of the broader economy. In terms of profits, though, the way
really, when executives are making, for example, I did a piece on Starbucks. When was it? Yesterday? Go back and watch it. It was one of my favorites. The Starbucks CEO, what does he make? His total compensation is $21.82 million per year. So if that 21.82, how many cups of coffee do they sell a year? Is it 21.82 million? It's probably more than that. I don't know. Let's imagine we gave $1 back to everyone buying that coffee. You'd say, this way overpriced, way over roasted coffee costs $1 less. Maybe prices are going down. That's far more affordable in its unaffordability. Am I right? I mean, I have to spell it out for Jerome Powell. Let's keep going.
I think about that is
see, Rashida Tlaib, as she's sitting there doing questions, making points, trying to actually get answers. She's being very polite, but I don't have to.
Profits are high. The places where profits are really high is places where there are shortages and supply chain issues. And as those things get better, as they are, you're going to see inflation come down and even prices come down, and you'll see corporate margins come down there.
Yes, let's blame it on the supply chain issues. I was just at the grocery store trying to buy some morning sausage links, sugar-free. Try to find them. They're almost impossible. And they were extremely, extremely expensive. Now, I don't know if lack of sugar is having a knot in its supply chain. I don't know if sausage links are having vegetarian sausage links are having a knot in their supply chain, or even the regular kind of sausage links are having a knot in their supply chain. All I know is that now they're like more than $6 a box, which is absolutely ridiculous for that kind of morning protein source. So is that the supply chain thing that's making groceries shoot through the roof? Don't think so.
And that'll be part of how inflation comes down.
So
So they're just going to wait until the supply chain things hammer themselves out. Meanwhile, corporate profiteering is going to go on under the guise of supply chain problems. That's basically what he's saying.
Corporate profiteering does impact inflation. You don't have any stats of percentage-wise how much of it? Yeah. Because you seem, I really paid attention to your testimony in the Senate hearing yesterday, and there was a lot of conversation about, my neighbors and residents' wages and so forth. They're finally starting to see a little bit more closer to possibly getting fair wages. It's not even far enough, but I don't know if the Feds is paying closer attention to monopolies, corporate profiteering, and executive egregious pay. All of it, even the stock buybacks. You're saying all of that aside, you're focused more on wages and increasing the interest rate than on those other.
Our focus is really on.
He's not saying that his focus is actually, on one instead of the other. He's saying he's only solely focused on the one. The others don't even come into the conversation because they are not allowable in the conversation that props up a failing capitalist system.
On price stability, not so much wages. Wages play into that because they're an important cost for business, but they're not. We're not.
Yes, they're an important. They play into it. I'm sorry, I'm not letting you hear his whole thing. Because it's so annoying to me. Wages play into the piece because they're a part about corporate profitability. They are not concerned at all about people and their ability to live. The only reason they're concerned about inflation is because the more things cost, the less people will be able to buy them.
We're not trying to achieve a particular level of wages. We're trying to achieve 2% inflation.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, Chairman, what we saw during the pandemic is, the wealthy and the corporations continued to profit in large scale and still do buybacks and still do really egregious executive pay and benefits and so forth for those at the top. And then, of course, the communities and such were impacted by it. But what I hear consistently is folks thinking that's the reason. All of a sudden wages are skyrocketing, all this. But all I see is continuation, again, of those that are already getting a huge benefit, the folks at the top, the executives and so forth. My friend Glenn taught me this today, that the feds.
Who's Glenn? I want to know more about this Glenn.
Are actually sitting on, something in Dodd-Frank Section 956. You all are sitting on the last 12 years on guidance regarding executive compensation and the high risks of it. Like around, there was some sort of proposal done, not implemented. Again, it's been 12 years. Why is that something that you're not concerned about regarding inflation?
Well,
you guys are you're sitting on it, right? Why?
Well,
it's been 12 years. And then two, why is that you're saying that's not big deal? That's not going to impact the cost of products and so forth for our residents.
It's a multi-agency rule, and there have been repeated attempts to get 5 or 6 or 7, however many it is, agencies to agree. That's one thing.
On disclosures?
No, this is on, it's on policies to.
Which include disclosures and arrangements regarding executive pay and the risk of it.
Anyway,
956 is, you're right, we haven't been able to get agreement among the agencies. But more to the point,
let's just pause that real quick, and point out how he didn't answer the question. He didn't say, yes, 986 or whatever the number is there. And we are studying the effect of executive compensation. And no, I didn't consider it at this time in history when it's so egregiously out of control. And we have inflation that is, really affecting the American people. But no, I definitely didn't, even though we've known about it for 12 years, because we can't get everyone in our agency to agree upon what to do. Slick avoidance.
Boards long since, this is just for the big banks where we have this authority, long since board of directors are very focused on how executive compensation works and that it not reward, unnecessarily risky behavior and that kinds of things.
Yeah, but
yes, how executive compensation works and how it doesn't reward unnecessarily risky behavior, because those unnecessarily riskies that he's talking about, those risks are risk to the company, risk to the shareholders. That's what he's talking about, not risks to the American people, not risks to the worker, risks to the shareholders. Okay, moving on.
In Dodd-Frank, which Congress passed, there should, you're supposed to put something in place, and it's not in place. And look, I'm saying this because so many people in this chamber, and I feel like the feds are more obsessed with wages than they are in regards to the monopolies, the corporate profiteering, There hasn't been any, I mean, really, I don't think there is a laser focus on that. And it's really,
So we
because
don't-
I think
we
the
don't do
feds and
competition
Congress can
policy.
support fair wages and still combat inflation if you are fair in combating egregious executive pay, monopolies, and corporate profiteering.
We don't do competition policy, and we also don't, broadly speaking, regulate corporate wages.
But
Gentlelady's
956
time's
would have addressed
expired.
it.
Gentlelady's time-
956 addresses it. You should have, it's 12
The
years.
gentleman from South Carolina.
Rashida Tlaib bringing it up. Thank you very much. We would not have even discussed it without your bravery there. Sorry you didn't get the kind of answer that might have been useful. And I love how he said, oh, we at the Federal Reserve, we don't do, compensation policy. Well, let's just remember a minute ago, she also said the Federal Reserve and Congress should address. So I'm Julianna Forlano. You're watching Political Voices Network. Don't forget to put your comments down below. I love reading them, and I'll see you tomorrow.